All right, so we're working in the shop today and we're working on one of my favorite things, an older classic American truck. Who doesn't love an older American classic truck? This is a 1969 Ford Ranger. Danger, Ranger. It is a full-size F-250 from 1969, if I didn't already say that. I did a video on this truck a couple days ago. Can't remember. Monday, Tuesday. Doesn't really matter. It has non-assisted drum brakes all the way around. It has no power steering. The power steering pump would be right in this area. And it's a 360 CID 2-barrel. I don't know if you can read that on there. It says 360. Oil bath, air cleaner. I have done some work to this thing already. The needle and seat was sticking on the carburetor. It overflowed on a test drive, left me stranded. That was fun. This little piece of hose here was leaking, filled up the whole intake full of fuel, made a huge fire hazard. The timing was out of whack. The points were out of whack. Nobody sets timing. Nobody sets dwell anymore. Everything is electronic. So this thing is running really good. Changed the oil even. Fresh Wix filter and fresh 2050 in the sump. And there's just one thing we're down to, and that's a starting issue. It's a random starting issue, and it's a manipulable random starting issue. In other words, it starts fine until you press the brake pedal, and then it doesn't start. And that makes no sense to me, why manual brake truck of this age would have no crank when you step on the brakes. So it's probably a voltage issue, and we're going to run through what it's going to take to fix it. So you can see my battery sitting here. I've had the door open, the dome lights on, so it's down to 12 volts, 12.1 volts. Let's make sure that voltage is the same here at the solenoid, and we still have 12.1. And what you can see I did here as a test, I've actually ran through this already, is I've taken a 10 gauge wire and I've just looped it into the cab. And I'm going to test the ignition supply. So let's go in there and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So that is just a temporary wire, runs directly from the positive side of the solenoid, just laying across the engine in through the door. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here. Wish you could smell this old truck. It smells great. It smells like an old Ford. Now somebody's been in here. They've put on a volt gauge. Normally it just has a amp gauge right there, and this truck does have trailer brakes, and I thought that that unit may be sucking enough power away from the starter solenoid when you touch the brake pedal that it wouldn't start. So I'm going to show you here. I've got a ground right here, put my tester lead on there. And then I've peeled back this yellow wire right here, which is the power to the ignition. And we'll put it on that. And you can see already, just from the 12.1 that was out there at the battery, I've lost 0.6 of a volt just on that, hooking up to that wire. Now, if I turn the ignition on, let's see if I can turn the ignition on here, the key, and well, I'm going to do it, set it down. So I'm going to reach up here, turn the key on to the ignition, and you can see voltage drops way low, 8.5. And then if you press the brake pedal here, brake lights come on, and you've got 7 volts. That's too low. So what we're going to do, we're going to take my wire, my 10 gauge wire directly from the battery post. We're going to clip it on there as a test. Let me put the camera down because I need 2 hands to clamp it, and we'll see if it makes a difference. So let me show you what happens here. It's too low for my volt gauge. The truck will start if I just crank it over at 8 volts, but if I put a big old boot on the brake pedal, the brake lights are on. Watch this. Nothing. You can watch the light come on there. I know my ignition switch is... Okay, so I just took my direct wire from the solenoid, or from the battery positive, the red one here, and I clamped it with my needle nose vice grip onto the yellow wire. And let's see if we got 12 volts now. We were down, what, 8, 9, 10, who knows? Okay, we got 11.8. And let's see what happens when I press on the brake pedal. 11.6. So we lost 0.2 of a volt instead of a whole volt. I think this is going to make a big difference. So I got the key on here. I'm sucking all my battery juice. I'm going to put my foot on the brake pedal. And before, the truck would not start if I put my foot on the brake pedal. Let's see what happens now. Yes. Now we're charging. You can see. So my test, in theory, has worked. Something has deteriorated in this yellow wire. I don't know if somebody else has added too much stuff to it. There has been a few electronic things that have been added. I don't know if this truck originally came with an alternator. It may have came with a generator. But anyhow, I'm going to run this properly through the firewall, protect it, and splice it into this yellow wire, and we should be good. So that's a little peek into my working on older vehicles, what you got to do sometimes. But it's scary when you're out driving this thing and it stalls on you like it did for me when the carburetor flooded, the needle in the seat stuck, and then I couldn't get it started. And I didn't realize that it's because I had my foot on the brake. It's just natural to put your foot on the brake to start a car these days. So, all right, let's get this old girl back on the road, back to the customer. We've got a few more things to do to it, but I thought you'd be interested in knowing what the project was today. 69 F250 is going to start every time.